Happy spring!
What up, fam? I have to say that because Chase calls me out because I say that all the time.
What up, fam?
What up, fam?
What up, fam?
How's it going, fam? Happy spring. Yeah, it is spring. How you doing?
Feels freaking good outside.
Feels amazing. We just got done with our workout one day before Beyond Wonderland. For
Going to California tomorrow.
It's another festival, 2-day fest.
Yeah.
So had to get it in before we're gonna be on our feet all weekend with that. Super excited about it.
Yeah.
So got a little posterior action in today. Actually, I got a little bit of everything, a little total body.
I did legs. And then I'm heading off to body work because I probably need this before we're on our feet for 2 days straight.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be going back home, and Chase and I are gonna be talking about drugs. So
yes,
let's go. What's up, guys? So, as I just told you at the gym, we're gonna be talking about drugs. But what kind of drugs? Performance enhancing drugs. All right, so please understand that anything that I'm gonna be discussing in this video is just for educational and entertainment purposes only. You always need to be guided by your primary care physician or coach that is very knowledgeable with these kind of things before going any kind of route and diving into performance enhancing drugs. So as a coach myself, I feel like these things need to be talked about a little bit more just because they really aren't. And if you see some things on the internet, a lot of times they can be skewed. So I thought it'd be a good topic, especially considering we had a supplement video last week. If you haven't guys watched that, if you haven't yet watched that, please do go check that out. And I just figured, follow up that video with performance enhancing drug talk. So I really feel like you're gonna get a lot out of this video. And I just figured that I would also just kind of give you some insight on what protocols that I have set in place for myself previously, as well as I got set in place in the upcoming prep. So first things first, what was I running during my off season? So during the off season, the overall goal is to, of course, gain lean body mass or recomp your physique. So one way we can do that is with testosterone. So testosterone should be pretty much the base of many performance enhancing drug cycles, especially male athletes. So testosterone, as a lot of you guys probably understand, let me just rewind a little bit. So a lot of these drugs that we're gonna be going over, people don't realize that they were actually synthesized and made for medical purposes initially. And then it wasn't until after using them for medical purposes that we found there's a lot of bodybuilding application to these protocols. So first off, starting with testosterone, initially it was prescribed for hypogonadism. So if you have low testosterone, well, we can do things such as testosterone replacement therapy and increase that testosterone. But not only do we find that increases your natural testosterone, but also there's a lot of good muscle building properties that come along with testosterone therapy. So it's a good anabolic compound that can help you really increase your overall gains from a strength perspective, as well as a building perspective, and also can be really good in a muscle retentive phase when dieting, which we'll talk about here in a second. So me personally, during my last off season, I ran 500 mgs per week. And that was the base of my cycle. So I pretty much kept 500 milligrams of testosterone in throughout my entire improvement season, and that kind of added and subtracted a couple other compounds on top of that. So on top of testosterone, during my improvement season, I added in a compound called deca-doroblin, or nandrolone. So nandrolone was initially synthesized to help with osteoporosis because it can really help strengthen the bones, as well as just help optimize joint health. So I was actually prescribed DECA during my improvement season because I was having some aches and pains in my elbow as well as my knees when I started putting on a little bit more weight than my body and frame could handle. So my nurse practitioner prescribed me DECA to help with that. But the cool thing about DECA, in addition to helping strengthen your bones, helping to strengthen your joints, it also is extremely anabolic at low doses. So my doc prescribed me 100 milligrams of DECA per week. And then a lot of people, especially a lot of you guys on the internet, are probably going to troll and be like, 100 mgs, that's it? Well, yeah, that is it, because 100 milligrams of pharmaceutical grade decadurabolin is very potent. And not only will you gain really good lean tissue from that, but you can also accumulate some solid recompositioning and decrease overall body fat throughout its use as well. So you can just get a lot of benefits from DECA at a very minimal dose. More is not always necessarily better, and especially when it comes to these kind of performance-enhancing drugs. All right, so the dose for growth hormone that I personally implemented, I started off low, about 3 IUs a day, and then I started adding a little bit more as my body got acclimated to it. And then I went upwards towards 6 to 8 IUs a day towards the tail end of my improvement season. And I would say that 8 IUs a day, personally, it made me gain quite a bit of water retention. So I kind of went back down to the 6 IUs to cap off the growing season. And the thing about growth hormone that you have to be careful of is it can increase your blood sugars. So you want to monitor your fasting blood glucose pretty frequently if you are running growth hormone. Or something that I implemented with the HGH was insulin. And as many of you guys know, insulin is used for diabetic patients to optimize blood sugar control. So if you think about it, when growth hormone increases blood sugars, insulin can help better manage and better regulate those blood sugars. But that's not what I was using insulin for. Like HGH, running insulin this past improvement season was my first time tapping into this, and the reason was it's the most anabolic hormone in the body. So I wanted to capitalize on some more gains by pairing both growth hormone and insulin and seeing if it was actually worth it. So what I did was, around my highest carb containing meals, typically around the workout, I would do 8 to 10. 8 to 10 IUs pre-training, and then 8 to 10 IUs post-training. And the most important thing with insulin is you need to have carbohydrates with that insulin, or you're going to go hypoglycemic and you could truly die, which is why I'm truly recommending steer away from insulin. I personally don't recommend it to any of my clients. Again, this was just for my own experimental purposes, so I can learn more about my body and learn more to further educate people like you guys watching this video. So insulin can be beneficial as far as further optimizing nutrient absorption and utilization, and further help shuttling the nutrients into the muscle cell. So with the 8 to 10 IUs, what I did was paired it with, about 10 carbs per IU. So if I did about 10 IUs of insulin, I would have no less than 100 grams of carbohydrates with that, so my blood sugars would not drop to a low enough level to where I was going hypoglycemic. And personally, I did realize with this dose and pairing it with an adequate amount of carbohydrates that the pumps in the gym were pretty decent and pretty apparent from the insulin use. And then again, the anabolic properties of the insulin were just allowing me to digest and utilize these nutrients I was consuming a little bit more efficiently, because I was consuming about 5,000 calories a day deep into the improvement season, which is a lot of food. And for those of you that understand what happens when you consume a lot of calories, the pancreas is going to be releasing insulin and working in overdrive in order to balance out the amount of calories that you're consuming. So when I was consuming 5,000 calories with the help of insulin, I was better able to digest those calories and those carbohydrates a little bit more efficiently, and it gave my pancreas a break, so to speak. So alongside with that, it was very anabolic. So these 4 compounds are what I personally use for my improvement season. And once again, please do not use these compounds or these dosages for your own sake. This is just for educational purposes. And again, insulin should not be used by anyone, only if you're diabetic. Cool, so now on to my cutting protocols as of right now. So the goal with prep: cut, retain, recomp the physique. So of course we want to drop body fat, but we also want to retain the muscle as much as possible. And then also we want to have a lot of recompositioning going on. So with PEDs, a big advantage is you probably can see that weight maintain itself, but then you can also see some improvements physically from your body changing. So that is one of the benefits of, one of the many benefits of performance enhancing drugs. So again, testosterone is the base of my cutting cycle. Just like the improvement season, I'm at 500 milligrams a week. So legit, no change from that. So instead of DECA, I now swapped it out for what is called primobolan. And a primo is a little bit different other than the other compounds that we talked about, because like I told you, a lot of these compounds were synthesized initially for medical purposes. Primo was actually synthesized for bodybuilding purposes. And primo got a lot of hype back in the day when Arnold Schwarzenegger was using it and using it quite a bit throughout his prep phase and his improvement season. So primobolan got a lot of hype, seeing Arnold talk about it back in the day. Primo is a really cool compound in the fact that it is a DHT compound, meaning it does not aromatize into estrogen. Therefore, you're not going to get a lot of water retention that you will with a lot of these other compounds that we talked about. But because it is a DHT compound, you need to make sure that you are running it alongside with something like testosterone, or you might find out that your estrogen is going to go down and you're going to have no libido and your hormones are going to be a little bit all over the place. So primobolan is a fascinating compound just because you can really, the gains that you get from it are going to be actual lean tissue as opposed to water gains that you might get from a lot of these other compounds that we've discussed. And the cool thing also is that it has low virilization effects, meaning if a female athlete were to run primo at a low dose, they will keep the masculinity features down to a minimum. And that's what we want when we run these kind of compounds with female athletes. So primobolan is going to be a performance enhancing drug that I might implement for certain advanced women because of the low virilization effects. And for me, I am currently running 500 mgs a week of primo. So I've got the test primo ratio at a 1:1. And then on top of that, the only other compound that I'm implementing is L-carnitine. And L-carnitine, what it can do is it essentially shuttles fatty acids to be utilized as energy for overall energy metabolism. And that is a really good thing because that can mean we can burn fat a little bit more efficiently. So I started to use L-carnitine right when we started prep, just to further utilize the nutrients that I'm consuming around my pre-workout training and to capitalize on some additional fat loss. And the dose that I am running is 500 per day on training days only right now. Now I want to touch base on a couple of other compounds that I am going to be implementing here in the next week or two. Clenbuterol. Clenbuterol is part of the bronchodilator family and was actually made for asthma and COPD patients, because what clenbuterol can do is open up the airways, from all the mucus from COPD, and allows the patients to breathe that much more efficiently. And then they found out that throughout that process, it actually helps aid in the fat loss process because it increases overall heart rate and non-exercise associated thermogenesis. So when running clenbuterol, those of you that have, you're gonna realize that your heart rate at rest is gonna go up a little bit. And then also you might realize that you might have these tremors. Like I'll be holding this pen and it'll be just shaking. So you need to start clenbuterol off at a low dose initially, assess your tolerance, and be aware of your caffeine intake if you're going to be implementing clen. Masteron, this is going to go in place of my primobolan here in the next 2-ish weeks. Masteron is actually very similar to primobolan in the fact that it is a DHT compound as well. Again, DHT means that it does not aromatize into estrogen, therefore there's not going to be any kind of water retention with that compound, making it an ideal compound for competition prep. So with Masteron, it's going to be a really good agent as far as further filling out your muscles, and you're going to realize that you're going to see that much more graininess and hardening of the muscle the leaner you get. But with Masteron, in order to see those benefits, you have to be relatively lean in order to achieve the maximum benefits from that. And then lastly, we already talked about HGH. I'm going to be implementing that back in my protocol at about 10-ish weeks out, just so we can further capitalize on some muscle retention and further fill out my muscle bellies. And I'll probably run that at about 4 IUs a day, split 2 in the AM, 2 in the PM. And that is the competition prep protocol. Now, before I let you go, I know a lot of you guys are probably going to be asking me about estrogen modulation and how I, how I manage my estrogen with compounds like testosterone that do in fact aromatize. So, again, you need to monitor your labs very frequently. Personally, I get my labs run every 4 to 6 weeks, and I have found that Novadex is a selective estrogen receptor modulator, and I have found with Novadex, I can keep my estrogen within a good range to where I'm still making progress, having low side effects, meaning I'm not having like gynecomastia build up in my nipples, I'm not having a crazy amount of water retention build up, and my estrogen is not being tanked from certain compounds like primobolan. With the Novadex, I run that 10 milligrams on my injection days only. And that is the only estrogen modulator that I personally implement right now. I've done that all throughout my previous season, and I probably will do that all throughout the prep going into my show. And I know a lot of people are big fans of what are called aromatase inhibitors, such as Arimidex, Inostrozole, and things of that nature. However, if you're going to be implementing those things, please understand that your estrogen might tank, and you might have realized that you're going to have some negative side effects such as loss of the libido, mood swings, etc. So the only way to dictate and determine how much of any kind of estrogen modulator or aromatase inhibitor that you're going to be implementing or should be implementing is by working with a primary care physician, getting routine labs, and then going to the drawing board and seeing what works for you. How could I forget about one of my favorite oral anabolics, Anavar? So Anavar, I'm actually going to be implementing this in the next 2 weeks, which will put me around 10 weeks out. So Anavar or oxandrolone is an oral anabolic agent. Unlike many of these other compounds that we discussed were injectables, Anavar was first synthesized for burn patients to help increase lean tissue and muscle wasting from those patients. But then they found out that it not only helped with the collagen synthesis and reproduction of those skin cells, but also that it allowed the lean body mass to accumulate that much more, and it helped drop and decrease overall body fat tissue in the process. Therefore, as you imagine, sparked the bodybuilding community's interest to start using it as a performance enhancing agent. So Anavar is an oral anabolic, like I said, which needs to be taken into consideration because it's going to be a little bit more toxic on your liver and organs. Therefore, you should probably run a liver agent in combination with the VAR. So for me, when I start running this, I will start off at 25 milligrams a day and probably take it up to 50 mg per day going into my show. And then with the Anavar, it's just gonna help with the last little bit of muscle fullness, muscle hardness, vascularity that those judges are looking for come show day. So if you guys have any questions about any of these compounds that I listed today, please let me know down below. Other than that, again, educational purposes only. Please consult with a doctor before doing any of these crazy protocols, and I'll see you in the next video.